Welcome to Module 12, Vulnerability Management. Today, we're diving into an essential topic for anyone in cybersecurity or IT. Understanding how to spot and fix vulnerabilities is key to keeping systems secure. Whether you're gearing up for a career in cybersecurity or just looking to up your IT game, knowing how to manage vulnerabilities can really boost your career prospects. Employers love candidates who can protect their digital environments, so mastering this skill can make you stand out. If you find this video helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're always in the loop. Let's jump in. By the end of this module, you'll have a solid understanding of why running a vulnerability scan is so important, how to make the right decisions when setting up a scan, and how to use audits and assessments to strengthen your security measures. Vulnerability scanning is all about examining your organization's security to spot any weaknesses. When diving into this topic, you'll get to grips with the basics of what a vulnerability scan is, where to find the data you need, the key decisions you'll need to make before running a scan, how to actually run one, and most importantly, how to analyze the reports and tackle any vulnerabilities that pop up. A vulnerability scan is an ongoing, automated process that helps you identify weaknesses and keep track of your information security progress. One specific type of vulnerability scan focuses on applications. Many of these apps rely on open-source libraries, which are often targeted by attackers since no single entity owns or controls them. To keep these apps secure, you can use package monitoring tools that continuously analyze them for vulnerabilities, helping to protect against potential threats. When it comes to vulnerability scanning, there are a few challenges you might encounter. First, there's the sheer volume of scan data you have to sift through, which can be overwhelming. Identifying the actual vulnerabilities within that data is another hurdle since not every issue flagged is a real threat. You'll also face technical limitations, as no scanning tool is perfect. Finally, there's the challenge of remediation, figuring out how to effectively address and fix the vulnerabilities you've uncovered. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about threat intelligence. This is essentially data that helps us understand the motives, targets, and behaviors of threat actors. Some of this information is proprietary and not accessible to outsiders, which can limit our view. Large companies often tackle this by hiring security researchers to find bugs in their products through what's known as a bug bounty program. Also, it's important to know that the web is divided into 3 layers: the clear web, the deep web, and the dark web. Each level offers different levels of access and security challenges. Proprietary vulnerability scanners often come with their own threat intelligence, available through paid subscriptions. These are known as third-party sources. There are also information-sharing organizations that collect, analyze, and distribute threat intelligence. Sharing this information has some big benefits. It allows organizations to tap into the collective knowledge and experience of others and helps them enhance their own data, making it more actionable and useful. A great example of a threat intelligence sharing center is the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Cyber Information Sharing and Collaboration Program, CISCP. They offer a range of valuable services, including technical exchanges between analysts for deep dives into threats, analytical products that provide insights and reports, coordination across different industries to tackle cyber threats, digital malware analysis to understand and combat malware threats. Automated indicator sharing, AIS, helps parties exchange cyber threat indicators through direct computer-to-computer communication. This process is supported by tools like Structured Threat Information Expression, STIX, a framework for sharing detailed threat data, Trusted Automated Exchange of Intelligence Information, TAXII, a protocol for exchanging this information securely and efficiently. Open Source Intelligence, OSINT, refers to threat intelligence data that is legally collected from freely available public sources. OSINT is frequently used to create cybersecurity threat maps, which visually represent cyber threats across different geographical areas. These threat maps help us understand and visualize attacks by showing where they originate and where they target. They also provide context on attack types and offer historical and near real-time data about threats, making it easier to grasp the broader picture of cybersecurity activity. Knowledge check. Why are open-source libraries vulnerable? These libraries are not owned and controlled by any single entity. They use coding tools that are considered inferior to standardized tools. They are stubs that cannot be properly verified for malware, or their platforms are known to be owned and managed by threat actors. Answer. These libraries are not owned and controlled by any single entity. Because these libraries are not owned and controlled by any single entity, attackers frequently infect open-source libraries with their malware. The malware then replicates whenever a programmer downloads and uses that library in their application. Now, let's talk about what you should scan when you're setting up a vulnerability scan. Before diving into a vulnerability scan, it's crucial to understand the value of the data you're scanning. You need to classify your data into groups based on the level of protection it needs. This might include classifications like confidential, private, sensitive, critical, public, and restricted. By identifying and categorizing your data this way, you can better assess its value and determine how often and what type of vulnerability scans are necessary. This helps ensure that you're focusing your security efforts where they're needed most. When it comes to vulnerability scanning, you need to consider different types of assets. Here's a quick rundown. Network scanning can help spot potential attacks and vulnerable systems on wired networks, giving you a look at the overall security landscape. Endpoint scanning involves finding vulnerabilities in servers, workstations, and other endpoints. It also gives you insight into configuration settings and patch history. Wireless network scans can detect rogue access points and ensure that your wireless network is secure from potential threats. Database vulnerability scans can pinpoint weak spots in your databases, helping to secure sensitive information. Application scans include web applications and other software. Scanning helps identify known vulnerabilities and problematic configurations. Understanding these asset types helps you tailor your scanning efforts to effectively manage and mitigate risks across your entire IT environment. When deciding how to perform a vulnerability scan, you've got two main approaches to consider. Active scanning, which is a method that involves sending test traffic into the network and observing how the endpoints respond. It's proactive and can speed up data collection, helping you quickly identify vulnerabilities. You also have passive scanning, which, instead of sending out test traffic, simply listens to the normal traffic on the network to gather information. This approach doesn't interfere with the network but can be limited if some parts of the network aren't always accessible for monitoring. Each method has its strengths and can be used depending on the specific needs and constraints of your network environment. When it comes to how to scan for vulnerabilities, you can choose between two main types. Internal vulnerability scanning, which is done from within your network. It helps you find vulnerabilities in systems that are already inside your network, giving you a clear view of potential risks from an insider's perspective. External vulnerability scanning is performed from outside your network. It focuses on specific IP addresses within your network to spot any vulnerabilities that might be exposed to external threats. Both types are essential for a comprehensive security assessment, as they provide different viewpoints on where your network might be at risk. When it comes to timing your vulnerability scans, here's what you need to consider. Schedule your scans thoughtfully. It's best to spread out scans and run them at specific times. Doing them during off hours, like nights or weekends, can minimize disruptions. Follow regulations. Some regulations may require scans to be performed at set intervals, so make sure to comply with any applicable rules. Consider you and your organization's risk appetite. An organization's tolerance for exposure to vulnerabilities, known as its risk appetite, influences how often scans should be done. Systems with a low risk appetite might need more frequent scans to stay on top of potential threats. Balancing these factors helps ensure that your vulnerability management is both effective and minimally disruptive. Let's dive into some of the tools you can use for vulnerability scanning. There are several tools available, each with its own strengths. For instance, OpenVAS is a popular open-source option, while Invicti specializes in scanning web applications. Nexpose and Nessus are also well-known tools for identifying vulnerabilities across various systems. Once you've chosen a tool, it's crucial to keep it updated. Make sure to regularly update the software plugins and access the latest vulnerability and threat feeds. This ensures your scans are based on the most current information and can effectively identify new and emerging threats. When setting up a vulnerability scan, it's important to define its scope and sensitivity. Scope of the scan refers to which devices or systems you want to include in the scan. You can set this scope using environmental variables. For example, you might use these variables to exclude certain directories from being scanned. Sensitivity level determines how deeply the scan will probe for vulnerabilities. You can adjust this based on what types of vulnerabilities you're looking for. Additionally, you can specify which types of data should be included in the scan to ensure all relevant areas are covered. Network security settings can sometimes interfere with how well a vulnerability scanner can examine devices on the network. To ensure accuracy, testers should always get proper permissions from internal supervisors before using the software to access approved systems. There are two main types of scanning technologies. Server-based pull scanning, where the scanner manager connects to a scanner engine that actively probes each system for vulnerabilities. This method pulls information from the devices. In agent-based push scanning, a software agent is installed on each system. The agent then pushes information back to the scanner manager, which can provide a detailed view of vulnerabilities. When it comes to vulnerability scans, there are two main types you'll encounter. Credentialed scans, where you provide the scanner with valid authentication credentials. This lets the scanner dig deeper, just like a threat actor with authorized access would, to find vulnerabilities that might not be visible otherwise. Non-credentialed scans don't use any authentication info. The scanner checks out the system from the outside, similar to how an external attacker might, which can help you spot vulnerabilities that are exposed without needing internal access. Both methods have their uses depending on what you're looking to uncover. Now that you have a good handle on how different types of scans work, let's talk about what happens next: analyzing the results. When you're dealing with vulnerability scan results, it's essential to validate them to make sure they're accurate. If a scan were completely perfect, you'd be able to trust that any alerts are spot on, meaning a true positive would accurately signal a real issue, and a true negative would mean no alarm for no problem. However, we often encounter false positives and false negatives. A false positive is when the scan raises an alarm for something that isn't actually a problem. It's like getting a fire alarm when there's no smoke. It's annoying but not dangerous. Conversely, a false negative happens when there's a real issue that the scan fails to detect. It's like a smoke detector that doesn't go off even though there's a fire. Definitely not ideal and can be dangerous. Validating the results helps to minimize these errors, ensuring that your scan is both reliable and useful in protecting your network and systems. When you're looking at a vulnerability scan report, it's important to remember that different audiences will need different types of information. Here's a quick rundown. Management is usually looking for a high-level overview of the scan's impact on the organization. They want to see how the latest scan stacks up against previous ones, understand the seriousness of the vulnerabilities, and get an estimate on how long it'll take to fix everything. Essentially, they need the big picture and how it affects the organization's operations and risk. System and network engineer folks need a detailed technical report that focuses on what needs fixing. They're interested in a list of vulnerable devices and specific details about each vulnerability. This report helps them figure out exactly what needs to be addressed to improve the system's security. Application developers will look for reports that detail which applications have vulnerabilities and what those vulnerabilities are. They want to know which parts of their code are at risk so they can make necessary updates or fixes. Security teams require very specific, technical details. This report should cover what systems were vulnerable, the reasons why these systems are at risk, and the exact steps needed to remediate the vulnerabilities. This detailed information helps them understand how to fortify their defenses and prevent future issues. Each of these reports serves a different purpose, so it's crucial to tailor your analysis to the needs of your audience to ensure that everyone gets the information they need to take action. After validating the results from your vulnerability scans, the next crucial step is addressing the vulnerabilities. This involves prioritizing them so that you can tackle the most critical issues first. When prioritizing vulnerabilities, there are a couple of key criteria you should consider. Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS. This system assigns a numeric score to vulnerabilities based on various factors like how easily they can be exploited, the complexity of the attack, and the impact on data confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Essentially, it helps you understand how serious a vulnerability is and how urgent it is to fix it. Common Weakness Enumeration, CWE. This provides a classification system for vulnerabilities, helping to rank them based on their types and potential impacts. It helps in categorizing vulnerabilities to better understand their nature and address them effectively. By using these criteria, you can prioritize which vulnerabilities to address first, ensuring that you're focusing on the most significant risks to your system. Once you've prioritized your vulnerabilities, it's time to take action. Here's what you should focus on next. Start by applying patches to fix known vulnerabilities and harden your systems to prevent similar issues in the future. This means updating software and configurations to improve security. Tackle the more challenging vulnerabilities that might require complex fixes or changes. These might involve deeper changes in system architecture or processes. Determine if there are any vulnerabilities that can't be fixed immediately and need special handling. These are exceptions that should be documented along with reasons for the delay. Review how your network is segmented to ensure that vulnerabilities don't compromise the entire network. Effective segmentation can limit the impact of a security issue to a smaller part of your network. After implementing fixes, verify that they work as intended. This involves running additional scans or tests to ensure that the vulnerabilities have been effectively addressed. Taking these steps will help you effectively manage and mitigate the risks associated with vulnerabilities in your systems. Knowledge check. You need to specify which devices need to be included in the next vulnerability scan. What parameter must you set? Sensitivity level, region, scope, or net scan? Answer: scope. The scope sets the parameter of which devices need to be scanned. Now that we've covered how to address vulnerabilities, let's shift our focus to understanding audits and assessments, which play a critical role in maintaining your organization's security posture. An audit is essentially a thorough examination of results to ensure they are accurate. Think of it as a detailed review to double-check that everything is as it should be. On the other hand, an assessment goes a step further. It's a judgment call on those results. It's about evaluating the situation and then deciding what actions are necessary to bring everything back into alignment with the required standards. These audits and assessments can be conducted internally, within your own organization, or externally by an outside party, each bringing a different perspective to ensure your security measures are solid. Now that we've touched on the importance of audits and assessments, let's dive into internal audits and see how they work within an organization. Internal audits are conducted by your organization's own team, allowing for a close, in-depth review of your systems and processes. These audits are typically more flexible, as they can be scheduled and performed as needed. The goal here is to identify any weaknesses, ensure compliance with internal policies, and prepare for external audits. Internal audits also help to catch issues early on, so they can be addressed before they become bigger problems. While internal audits focus on self-assessment and improvement from within, external audits take a different approach. External audits are carried out by independent professionals from outside the organization. These third-party experts bring an unbiased perspective, ensuring that the company meets regulatory requirements imposed by external bodies. Because they are independent, external audits often carry more weight in verifying compliance and credibility, making them crucial for organizations aiming to meet industry standards and regulations. After understanding the importance of audits, assessments, and external evaluations, we move into a more proactive approach: penetration testing. Penetration testing is about uncovering and exploiting vulnerabilities to see how far an attacker could get. While a vulnerability scan takes a defensive stance, identifying weaknesses, a penetration test is more offensive. It actively probes and tests the system's defenses. There are different types of penetration tests. For instance, physical penetration testing focuses on identifying weaknesses in physical security controls. On the other hand, integrated penetration tests take it a step further by examining both technical and physical vulnerabilities together. When it comes to using internal employees for penetration testing, there are some clear advantages. For one, it's cost-effective since you don't have to hire an external team, and the tests can be conducted much more quickly. Plus, it's a great way to boost employee training and raise awareness about potential security risks within the organization. However, there are also some downsides. Since internal employees have insider knowledge, they might not spot certain vulnerabilities that an outsider would. There might also be a lack of expertise in advanced penetration testing techniques, and employees might hesitate to reveal vulnerabilities, especially if it reflects poorly on the team or their own work. On the flip side, bringing in an external third-party pen testing consultant has its own set of advantages. These consultants typically bring a high level of expertise, with specialized credentials and extensive experience in penetration testing. Their focus is entirely on identifying vulnerabilities, and they approach the task with a fresh perspective, unclouded by any internal biases. When testers start their work, one of the first steps is to gather preliminary information from outside the organization. This process is known as footprinting. Footprinting is essentially reconnaissance, where testers collect as much data as possible to understand the organization's systems and potential weak points. There are two types of reconnaissance. Active reconnaissance, which involves directly probing the system to find vulnerabilities and gather useful information. This method is more likely to trigger alerts. Passive reconnaissance is a quieter approach where testers use tools that don't raise alarms, allowing them to gather information without being detected. Now that we've covered the basics, let's dive into comparing penetration testing with vulnerability scanning, two key concepts in cybersecurity. While they might seem similar at first glance, they serve different purposes and are carried out in distinct ways. Vulnerability scans are all about reducing the attack surface. These scans work by automatically sweeping through systems to find weaknesses that could potentially be exploited. The goal here is to continuously monitor and mitigate these vulnerabilities, keeping the network as secure as possible. Because they are largely automated, vulnerability scans are typically conducted by internal security personnel and can be run on an ongoing basis. The final reports generated usually include a mix of executive summaries for higher-ups and more detailed technical information for the security team. On the other hand, penetration tests take a deeper dive. Their primary purpose is to identify hidden vulnerabilities by simulating the actions of a real attacker. This process is highly manual and involves acting like a threat agent to find and exploit weaknesses. Penetration tests are usually conducted by external third-party experts or internal security personnel with specialized training, and they're often done when required by regulatory bodies or on a predetermined schedule. The final report from a penetration test might be more complex, catering to a variety of audiences, depending on the findings. In essence, while a vulnerability scan is more about routine maintenance and monitoring, a penetration test is a more intense, in-depth examination meant to uncover and address deeper security flaws. Both are critical, but they serve different roles in maintaining and strengthening your organization's security posture. Knowledge check. You have been asked to explore part of the web that is the domain of threat actors to look for information about the latest types of attacks. What area of the web will you explore? Dark web, deep web, black web, restricted web? Answer: dark web. The dark web is like the deep web in that it is beyond the reach of a normal search engine, but it is the domain of threat actors. Using special software such as Tor or I2P, Invisible Internet Project, will mask the user's identity to allow for malicious activity such as selling drugs and stolen personal information and buying and selling malicious software used for attacks. Let's take a moment to self-assess how comfortable you feel with the material we've covered in this module. On a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 means you're fully confident in your understanding, and 1 means you're not so sure, how would you rate your competence in the following areas? Listing the reasons for conducting a vulnerability scan. Describing the different scanning decisions and how to run a vulnerability scan. Explaining how to use audits and assessments. If you find yourself rating any of these below A4, it might be worth revisiting the module and doing some extra practice to build up your confidence. As we wrap up Module 12, let's quickly recap what we've covered. We've explored the importance of vulnerability scanning, the various types of scans and tools available, and how to effectively analyze and act on the results. We also dove into the differences between audits and assessments, internal and external audits, and the role of penetration testing and uncovering security weaknesses. Mastering these skills is crucial for anyone looking to stand out in the cybersecurity field. With a solid understanding of vulnerability scanning and testing, you'll be well equipped to protect organizations from threats, giving you a competitive edge in the job market. These are the kinds of skills that employers value highly, and your expertise can make a real difference in keeping their systems secure. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your classmates or colleagues, and leave a comment below with any questions or thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps me continue creating valuable content, and I appreciate every like, share, and comment. Let's keep learning and growing together.